Hello, it's Ileana and welcome back for my next scrapbook offering to you all. It's a layout using two pictures from two separate bedroom views in a house I once lived in called Roseville in Cromarty in the Highlands of Scotland. So I'm trying to work out how to fill in the sky and the foreground of a picture I'd long since fussy cut, and who knows why I did that. But actually I don't really end up to use much of that background. I just thought I'd try and play with the paints that came in this quirky kit, and probably ought not to have done that really. And so even trying to incorporate the crepe paper to maybe mute that background, I've decided to just go ahead and cut the foreground fence from a Martha Stewart punch there, which does mimic the fence that did really exist outside the front of the house in actual fact, so quite befitting. And yeah, I'm still trying to work on that background, thinking I might be able to salvage it with a bit of colour shine, and no way. It just doesn't look good. It looks very ugly as a background. Maybe a bit too pop art. I don't know what I was trying to achieve there really. So you'll see how I remedy my sky issue later on, but just now I'm matting that on that funny coloured paper I've just created. So working on this fence, I decided to not to keep it white, and I'm going along there with a bit of a graffiti gold pen to make it gold. Well, the fence in real life was actually grey and then white. Mum painted it white. From quite a dingy grey, so it wasn't gold, but you know, that's the nature of scrapbooking. Really into gold at the moment, and I thought that gold would work well on this kind of layout with the colours that came in the kit. So I think I'm trying to even work some gesso into the sky there to lighten it, but that's not really how you lighten blue, as I learnt by doing this. And so it's a bit of a painful process, after which I do end up sticking that on the sky, but yeah. So there's some stills here of me inserting the IKEA sky that I had chopped off from the last layout that I just had sitting on the edge there. And it's in 3 separate panels, but by that point I think I just decided to get some blue and white clouds in, however which way they looked. And so I've gone with that. Now I'm selecting some papers, including what's going to be my background, and I do settle for that. I think it's some kind of meology paper. I can't remember the branding. I'm just looking at the strip on the edge there to give myself a clue. For some reason I ordered 2 of those papers out of the kit. I don't know why. It might have been the chevrons on the back. That I'm really into chevrons at the moment actually, but as it happens I've used this side, and I do use those 2 strips of crepe ribbon there, so it's good to get that down, including that bit that I've mopped up the Heidi Swap Colour Shine Peach with, and these lovely Webster's Pages cut aparts to work those in somehow. Actually the one on the left there, that pinkish kind of the one there with the sand and the sky, I don't use on this layout, but you know, you've got to try these things. And so like I say, I really love chevron, and I've gone with a bit of a stylized sea it looks like down there, to kind of layer over the crepe paper to ground the layout a little bit. And just kind of fiddling with how the layers are going to work, as I don't really have a clear concept in mind as I'm working this through at the moment. So cutting the branding strip so I can wrap that round. And I would normally use my ATG. I think I'd lost it at that point under a pile of mess. So I'm going with quite an old tape runner there, but it's good for me to use these things, even though it's not my favourite glue at all. or adhesive I should say. So yeah, just deciding about the kind of layering and positioning a little bit. I've come back another day, you can see the lighting's changed a little bit. I don't like to waste anything, so knowing that that's just going to peep out from the edge, I've cut down the edge to just pop that behind. And I really like the faux washi tape that comes on that paper, and I wanted to keep that exposed, so I've decided to cut into the chevron to make it look like that's actually on top. And yeah, so just a little bit of kind of eyeball measuring there just to see where things are going to be. And I think I pull out the distress, that kind of Tim Holtz tool to distress paper, just to make it look a little bit rough and ready against that washi tape there. And I'm going to pull out some gold washi tape as well, just to layer it up in addition to what's down there already, because although you can't really see it on camera, in reality it does look like the washi tape's definitely not on top, even though I was trying to make it look like it was stuck on top. So I've kind of worked in a bit of gold, as you'll see me do in a second, once I chop off the points that overhang the bottom of that page there. So what am I up to now? Still working on the positioning. I don't know why. I think I'm fiddling around to see where I want things, but yeah, not really serving any purpose. I think I'm just thinking what my layout, what ultimately I'm trying to achieve with this. But actually I do really want to depict the fact that this is a seaside town, so I definitely do want to get that sea on the edge there and another sea up there at the top. And in particular, I think why I'm struggling, not really struggling, but I'm fiddling around a bit with the layout, is because in my mind I know which direction the sea is. So from that picture at the bottom with the fence, the sea would be to the left and slightly behind, because that's facing very much inland. But on the other picture that I'm now holding, that's facing the back of the house, and that's where the sea would be more or less ahead and to the right. And that's visually how I also want those Webster's Pages pieces to be against the pictures, because I know in reality where the sea really would be. So it's just for me really that that's why I've got the positioning like that. Maybe I'll explain a little bit about these pictures. So they're, as I say, they're taken from two separate bedrooms that I occupied in that house called Roseville. My mum ran a B&B from that house, and there were many bedrooms, and it's a different kind of living to what I enjoy now in London completely. And in my heart I really do miss the sea. So here I am pulling out some Heidi Swap stencils that I really wanted to play with on this layout, and I suppose with the chevron theme there, I'm sticking with chevron for the edge of the lower picture, and I think it was my husband's suggestion to go with some kind of stylized clouds up there in the top, so I've gone with the circles, which naturally felt the right position up above. And working in some texture paste, just roughly, nothing too neat, to get a bit of well, different dimensions on the page, which I really like how that turns out. Trying it off quickly there with my heat tool, and just committing some of the pieces down, so the chevron bit there with the crepe paper underneath. And you'll see that I do end up to now commit some of the different pieces that I've been fiddling around with for ages. They're all going to go down. That's the washi tape I was talking about earlier, the gold, going in place now, just to make it kind of blend in. Well, that's my hope anyway. The title will go on top of that somewhat, so as you'll see in the stills. And so now seems about the right time to read you the journaling that I wrote as well. So it says, "A home by the sea, there in wee Cromarty. It was so good to sell. There's a story to tell. It's a little bit twee, but anyway, it's just little prompters for my own memory, really, more than anything, some of which I've shared with you today. So I'm just sticking up this particular picture on some foam tape to give it some relief against the backdrop, and that tiny L shape that I cut out earlier, to put everything into position just where I want it. And just as I stick that down, musing over that picture, that's the picture of the Button Ben that the house overlooked, and I think that was where the dairy operated from, or in any case our local milk lady Gracie used to deliver the milk from, I think, that building. And there's a field beyond where there were some happy campers. I never saw campers in that field, except for, obviously, that's why I've chosen to take the picture that day, as it was a bit of an unusual sight. So where am I now? Just working to see whether some extra layers might happen here. I think I decided that washi tape would work as just another little piece of interest poking out. And the other words that I write on these pictures in the wording in the font that came with the kit is to just denote for me which the two pictures were. So one of them shows that it was the rear view out of the rear of the house, and that's entitled Log Cabin, up until 15, meaning that I was in there until I was 15 years old, and then after turning 16 I moved to the eaves. Up until I was almost 18 we moved out to live in an equestrian centre in caravans there for the whole of the summer holidays until I started uni. There's a memory. Overlooking Loch Ness. It was absolutely idyllic. So back to the layout and what I'm up to. I'm just finding those lovely little clips, and that's of course one of a compass. I suppose the different directions of the rooms, that works there, and the boat on the stylized sea. And I've already popped the lighthouse, and there was a lighthouse in Cromarty, and I remember a family even living in there for a little while, but not operating it as a lighthouse, they just lived in it. Now these, okay, let's talk about the ribbon and the seagulls, which were very much a feature of Cromarty life. In fact, I remember getting bombed by these wretched gulls one day as I walked through Church Street when they had their young all over the road, and they didn't like me being there. So that's a funny memory, and also the reminiscent sounds that seagulls like to make anyway near the sea. And that pink ticket sold, which the journaling touches upon, just to remind me of actually what a bit of a pain it was to try and sell for my mum at the time. It was back in the days of the housing crisis, so we're talking about 1994 in Britain. Things weren't particularly easy on the housing market, and it was hard to move out, even though we'd decided at that point that we wanted to move just a little tad further south into the more central part of ultimately Inverness, actually. And just sticking down some of those with a Heidi Swap. I think they were the Heidi Swap stickers that came in the pack, the kit I should say, which were really sweet. And there's a couple of hearts at the top there, and a few sentiments such as always in my heart, looking around the page, and there was an anchor as well, which you see me working on. Really trying to find a position for that one, and in the end I'll just nestle it under that little top right bit, but I haven't done that yet because now I'm pulling out the rub-ons by Crate Paper, and I use a few of those on this layout as well, and in particular the one I'm working in now to find a position is the one that says 1000 goodnight kisses, which I suppose is my way of saying goodbye to Cromarty, and with the happy memories that I have had of the place for the 5 years that I lived there as well. And to try and stop all of it transferring onto the rest of the picture, I decided to kind of lay out some of the white paper. I mean, I really could. I suppose I could just have cut the rub off itself in the angles to stop it going onto the pictures, but anyway, that's the way I've decided to do it to make a little bit of extra work for myself, as you can see. So that went nicely in the edge there, I thought. And the background paper is quite subtle, so that works really well. It pops against the kind of whitewashed look of that colourful wood. And then now I'm working on the other sentiment over on the bottom of the sea that says happy moments. And you know, just after we got married, I took my husband back to Cromarty in 2005, and that, I can tell you, was a happy moment when we walked to the harbour's edge to find a sign, beautifully graffiti'd, which stated Costa Dela Crom, a rather humorous play on Costa del Sol, a Spanish resort that a lot of British holiday makers flock to for some sun. So that tickled us pink, really. Anyway, so now finally just putting a few extra rub-ons that love this one there. And I'll pop down a few extra stickers from the collection there as well. And finally be working on the title, which states Roseville, Costa Dela Crom. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my layout today. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Bye for now.